Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Business Connection, a program produced by the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm Cathy Petersen, a volunteer with the Chamber. The Chamber is committed to helping Dayton area businesses, and one of the ways it does that is by working with regional leaders and legislative leaders on key issues. The Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce is unique in that it offers public policy support to its members. It has 2 registered lobbyists on staff, and they are with me today. Welcome, Chris Kershner, Vice President of Public Policy and Economic Development at the Chamber, and Stephanie Precht, Director of Public Policy and Economic Development. So good to have you both here. We've had you both separately on the program before, and now you're together. You are the dynamic duo.
That's the first time I think we've heard somebody describe us as the dynamic duo,
right.
Cathy. But thank you. We'll take it as a compliment, and we'll just go with it.
It's out there.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about
That's
it.
right.
Tell me a little bit about your positions and what you do.
Sure. Well, Stephanie, why don't you go ahead and go first? My daddy always told me let ladies go first, so I want to make sure I honor that.
Sort of the Batman and Robin
That's
dynamic
right.
there, right? Yeah, so I work on a lot of issues for the Chamber. We are focused right now specifically on a lot of energy and environmental issues, and so that's been a big priority area. I also have been recently very heavily involved in a lot of workforce issues, and so a lot of times we tag team some of the main policy priorities of our members, but you know, I always say if it's an issue with our members, it becomes an issue for us. And so, you know, we are constantly tracking legislation at the state, local, and federal levels and kind of divide up that way what our strategic areas are going to be. But I would say lately it's absolutely been energy and environmental and workforce for my bailiwick.
Fantastic. Chris.
Sure. Yeah, Stephanie's exactly right. You know, we are a member-driven organization. We have 2,800 businesses that are members of the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. We are the 23rd largest chamber in the entire country. And we're not the 23rd largest metropolitan area in the country, which is a real testament to our business community. So the positions that we take and what we advocate on is what is healthy for business growth in the Dayton region. And that's really where our focus area is. It's that simple. People a lot of times ask me what the secret sauce is, and I tell them, you know, it's not a secret sauce. We do what's right for business. If it helps businesses grow, if it helps make the Dayton region a more attractive place for them to operate their business, then you're most likely going to see the Chamber right behind that issue. So those are the issues that we work on. I've been at the Chamber since 2005. It's been a great homecoming for me because I was originally from the Dayton area, spent some time in Washington, D.C., spent some time in Columbus, but then came back to where my roots are and where my real passion is and helping out the Dayton business community. So it's great to be part of this organization, and it's great to be part of business growth and the economic future here in the Dayton region.
Because it is such an exciting time.
Mm-hmm.
Every 2 years, the Chamber takes a look at public policy initiatives and maps out its priorities, you mentioned that, Stephanie, in the upcoming legislative session. In this publication right here, the Legislative and Regulatory Agenda, which is always a very interesting document. It is filled with great information each and every year. Sometimes it's new information, and we always look forward to seeing some of the things that you're going to tackle this year. Now, the 2015-2016 agenda, it's going to soon be released, so this is you know, hot off the presses. What do each of you identify as the major issues that will soon face our region's business community? And Stephanie, you touched on it a bit.
Yeah, I probably should talk a little bit about how we come up with this agenda every 2 years. As you know, the Chamber is very heavily oriented towards volunteers. And so we, with the input of our volunteers and our members, compile an ongoing list of some of the big policy, large policy priorities and objectives. And so we cull those down, you know, over the course of several conversations and come up with some strategic areas that we want to focus on for the upcoming term. And those are ultimately approved, you know, by our Chamber committees, and then we release this to the public. And we also release it to our legislative delegation, so they know that this is going to be what we're advocating on for the term. You know, as I mentioned in my beginning comments, for us lately, especially at the local level, we've really been focused on a couple of key environmental issues that are impacting our business. One that you may have heard about is the source water protection issue, which deals directly with the aquifer, the protection of the aquifer, but also the ability of businesses that are located on the aquifer to grow and expand. And so we've been working very closely for about 8 months with city staff to create, or to, I should say, adjust a set of regulations that really take into account that need for business flexibility and growth, but also take into account that this is a resource that we need to protect. And so, we're getting very close to the ultimate decision, I think, that will go before City Commission. But that's just an example of sort of the policy process that we use. We're guided originally by this document. We hold a series of meetings directly with our members, business roundtables, and then we lobby. We work with our elected officials as well as hired staff at the city and state level, and really come up with something, a happy medium, that benefits the business community, but also protects some of our natural resources. So that's been a big focus area of mine.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like Stephanie said, this document really serves as our blueprint for our public policy and our government affairs activities for the upcoming biennium. It's approved by our board, it's approved by our committees, so we have the backing of the members that are directing our regular day-to-day activities, and that backing gives us an idea of the direction we're going to head. A lot of it is 40,000-foot view. There's not too many specifics. There's a few in there, which we can talk about, but a lot of it is 40,000-foot view because it just helps guide our direction. And then as we need to take positions that are outside of this agenda, we have the committee structure in place and the executive committee and the board process in place that's able to take those positions and evolve with the needs of the business community, which is crucial to any organization, especially as you're looking towards doing what's right on the public policy side for the business community. Something we're proud of at the Chamber is we are the voice of the business community in the Dayton region to federal, state, and local government. Members pay us dues every year, and they trust that we're going to represent their needs. We need to honor that trust. Right. And this document helps make sure that we're on the right path and doing what our members want us to do, but it also gives us the flexibility to evolve and change as we go forward.
And Chris, one of the big issues I know that you've been working on is the logistics and distribution industry. In fact, I believe the Chamber has made that a priority right now. So you're forming the Dayton Area Logistics Association as we speak. How can your advocacy work support that industry? Yeah,
thanks, Kathy. The Dayton Area Logistics Association is a great initiative that we just started at the beginning of 2015. This is something new that's really recognizing that the Dayton region is a player in the logistics industry. We have a unique asset here that not many folks in the country or even the world have. We have the interchange of I-70 and I-75, which has been deemed the freight crossroads of America. We have a CSX rail line that comes right down into Vandalia that actually starts up in the Toledo port. So you can get shipping freight that comes in across the Atlantic, down the St. Lawrence Seaway into Lake Erie, and then gets dropped off at the Toledo port and can get on rail freight and come down to the Dayton area. And then thirdly, we have an international airport. We have an international airport with a business-friendly foreign trade zone in which businesses can receive and distribute international product. All of that culminates within a 3-mile radius of each other. It is truly a multimodal and logistics hub, and businesses are recognizing that. So it's not just me that's out there marketing this saying, hey, look at this great asset we have. The business community realizes it. And that's why we've had companies like P&G that recently located here and built a $90 million plus facility right there in the city of Union with 43 acres under roof that's going to have hundreds of trucks in and out a day and hundreds of employees in and out a day, all distributing P&G product. We've had folks like Caterpillar that have their North American parts distribution operations close by, Payless Shoes, which has their distribution operations close by, White Castle Distribution, Abbott Foods Distribution, Meyer Distribution, the list goes on. And these are all companies that are well known across the country because they have folks that are able to identify where it's most beneficial for them to locate their distribution operations. It's right here in the Dayton region, and there's something we're proud of, and we want to make sure we have the infrastructure to support it. Therefore, getting to your original question, we've created the Dayton Area Logistics Association. This association has already hit the ground running. It's got a great steering committee of individuals that are all focused on supporting this industry. This group will be an economic development tool, will be a workforce development tool, will be a networking venue, and will be an advocacy tool that can all push for issues that will benefit the logistics industry. The Chamber for a long time has been the advocate on transportation issues. Over the past 10 years, we've received about $1.02 billion in transportation and infrastructure investments. We want to continue to make the case for us to receive another $1 billion over the next 10 years. And this Logistics Association is going to be a direct beneficiary of that investment, so we want to make sure their voice is represented in Columbus and in Washington, D.C., and that's one of the main reasons why this association's here.
And you make such a good point that some of the biggest companies are recognizing it. They're coming here, and they're hearing, P&G, Cat Logistics, and they're like, hey, something's going on in the Dayton region. So yes, we are attracting a lot of attention. What are some of the challenges when it comes to logistics and distribution that you hear from companies? What do they need?
Sure. Yeah, a lot of what the companies need, at least the distributors need, is the support services, is the supply chain and the support services. We have some great companies already in the region that are providing this. Companies like Gym City Tire, like Rush Package Delivery, all doing very good job on some of them are directly doing the logistics, others are doing the support services. Love's truck stop, gas station that recently opened up here. That is something that the logistics distributors need in this region because they need to have the support infrastructure that supports their truckers. We have great third-party trucking companies in this area like Jet Express and Dayton Freight that are doing very well. And that's another thing that the distributors need is to have that support services. But there's more. There's more that's needed. And we're seeing more folks that are moving into this area to help provide that support service. One that recently came into the area is IGS CNG, a compressed natural gas supplier. A lot of these freight trucks are converting over to natural gas engines, and we need to have natural gas stations that can supply the demand of that type of fuel. So we've had some folks moving into the area in that arena. We've had our education institutions that are retooling their curriculums to meet the needs and demands of this industry. They're opening up programs in supply chain logistics. They're opening up trucking programs, everything to support that industry. But there's more that's needed. So, really we'll see those supply chains and the support services continue to grow because the need is great and the need is continuing here in the Dayton area.
And one of the things that the Chamber is just outstanding at is working with partners and listening to what folks need, what our employers need, our businesses need, and I applaud you for that because it is creating great success. And what that leads me to a question for you, Stephanie. If you anyone who's lived in Dayton knows about regional cooperation because we are very good at it. Many of our partner agencies, we work very well together. Where does the Chamber stand on that issue, and what's the plan to achieve, the agenda using that?
Sure, absolutely. I think you're exactly right. I think regionalism underscores everything we do at the Chamber. Our offices are located in downtown Dayton, and the vibrancy of the urban core is tantamount. However, we cover a 9-county footprint at the Dayton Chamber, and so all of our issues impact, not only our 9-county region, but Southwest Ohio and the state in general. And I could say that most of what we work on could not be done if we didn't work with our regional partners. There's a couple different avenues that we take when we talk about regionalism. I think a big one is we convene something called a leader group. Leader chambers are our local and regional chambers around the Southwest Ohio that come together on a quarterly basis and talk about those priorities for the business community. So oftentimes our advocacy speaks with that voice, not only representing Dayton Chamber members, but other chambers across Southwest Ohio. Another piece of the regionalism puzzle is what we call the PDAC process, which we work with the Dayton Development Coalition, another regional partner, and we prioritize some of our federal projects that we are seeking funding for. We just went through our piece of it a couple of weeks ago, and it's really about looking at some of our big economic development projects, some of our big transportation and infrastructure projects, and saying, okay, we all have our piece of the pie that we sort of cover, but as a community, we really need to come together and prioritize these as being our top needs for our region. So, what Chris just spoke of, our logistics industry, a lot of our infrastructure pieces would not be possible if we didn't consider the impact far beyond Dayton. And so I think, it underscores everything that we do.
You know, with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in our region, national defense, obviously a big topic. I know that you've addressed it for years. What kind of work do you believe is ahead for your team, and both of you can weigh in on this, when it comes to maintaining the strength of the base?
Yeah. You know, the base is an economic development engine for the Dayton region. They employ, last I saw, about 28,000 individuals at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The multiplier for individuals employed outside the fence at Wright-Pat is about 2.1. So, I mean, you're talking almost 90,000 people whose jobs are directly related to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That's why they have a $4.2 billion economic impact on the Dayton region. Now, that's annual, and that's billion. That's a lot of economic stimulus that's coming out of that institution. So we need to have a strong advocacy arm as it's related to Wright-Pat. And this is where we really partner, again, with one of our partner organizations, the Dayton Devleopment Coalition. Dayton Devleopment Coalition has had a strong history of supporting Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and we like to work with them on everything we can do to help grow that organization and make sure that it continues to be vibrant. But you will see in our legislative and regulatory agenda that we have a specific focus on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. A lot of our focus is going to be on around making sure that if a future BRAC or base consolidations is considered in the U.S. Department of Defense, that Wright-Pat comes out a winner. That Wright-Pat receives some new missions, that we actually grow jobs and grow some of the intellectual talent at Wright-Pat. You're also going to see in that legislative agenda that we're going to have a focus on working with small business defense contractors, making sure they have contract opportunities with the Department of Defense. Another unique asset we have in this region, because we have a lot of them, but another unique asset we have is Wright-Pat. And not a lot of areas have a military installation of that caliber and that size. So because we do, that provides opportunities for our small businesses. However, it's no secret, finding opportunities at Wright-Pat can sometimes be like reading hieroglyphics on the side of a cave. It can be very difficult for some of these small businesses and for the large businesses. I'm not speaking ill of either. It's just, you know, it's a federal process and it's hard if you're not familiar with it. So what we want to do is really help guide some of those small businesses through that process so that they understand how to identify the opportunities, apply for the opportunities, and hopefully win some of those bidding opportunities at Wright-Pat so that they can be part of that local economic engine.
Absolutely. Stephanie, would you like to add anything?
Sure. I think, you know, one of the things we found working on some legislation that potentially impacted the base over the last 10 years or so is that the importance of keeping a lot of the people who work at Wright-Pat that may want to retire, keeping them in our community. So we've worked on a couple pieces of legislation that have made this region so much more attractive. It keeps that intellectual talent here. Most of those retirees go on to either start a business or work with another local business. You know, we have a lot of young retirees, and so it just makes our community more vibrant, and we really saw the direct benefit of working on some of that state legislation that makes those retirement pensions more attractive and allows you know, that sector to continue to grow even after they may leave Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Another hot topic is changes in our healthcare system and how those changes affect businesses large and small. The Affordable Care Act has been ranked in the top 5 concerns for business owners and operators in 2015. What action plan does the Chamber have for healthcare advocacy over the next 2 years?
Sure. Yeah, you know, to take a step back in time, Affordable Care Act was not something that we were big fans of at the Chamber. It imposed some mandates on the business community that we didn't necessarily like. But it's here now. So now we're trying to figure out how we can either deal with the current situation that the Affordable Care Act has presented, but then we're also still proactively looking at, are there changes and tweaks that can be made to it that makes it more friendly for the business community? And we have some folks in U.S. Congress, I think, that are amenable to that discussion. So we're having those conversations. We're having those conversations to identify what can be done to make this a little bit more friendly to the business community. And we're excited about some opportunities that are on the horizon. At the same time, we're running a parallel path because we don't know if things are going to change. I mean, this is the challenge, you know. We can certainly propose it and advocate for it and lobby on it, but we don't know if it's going to work. So we have to run a parallel path that says, if it doesn't work, what can we do to help our businesses navigate and guide through meeting the requirements of the Affordable Care Act? So It's going to be an interesting 6 months as the new Congress has begun and the new Senate leadership and Speaker Boehner from this region are all meeting and trying to figure out their game plan. We want to make sure that the voice of the business community is front and center as they're trying to figure out that plan.
And I think the ACA represents sort of the dual roles that we play. We have, the advocacy role that we play, and it's, very much grassroots focused at all levels of government. But at the other hand, we also play a significant education role. And I think, particularly where it comes to the Affordable Care Act, that's what our businesses need. Once these mandates are in place, how do you navigate that? And we do a series of programming throughout the year for the past several years to help businesses as those new regulations come into effect. And so the education piece, I think, can't be understated when it comes to especially a lot of these federal regulations.
Because we've actually done multiple programs for Business Connection just on the Affordable Care Act, and we could do many, many more because there's so much information out there that needs to be shared with your businesses, and you do a wonderful job.
Yeah, we've had multiple programs here at Business Connection, but we've also run multiple programs in doing education and guidance for our members, really so they understand the process. Stephanie has managed a program that's had hundreds of businesses that have attended who are really just confused. They're confused by the Affordable Care Act, and they're looking for some of that guidance, and that's one of the roles the Chamber plays, is helping them guide them through some of that government bureaucracy.
Right.
What's the feedback you get, Stephanie, from working with the companies? Obviously they're grateful for the education piece of it.
Sure. I think it's just, as Chris mentioned, it's so uncertain. And we represent, a party that's not affiliated with government that can help them navigate this. We're here to represent our members. And so it's sort of a situation of them knowing that we have their back. We have the ability to interpret a lot of this language, to make it understandable, to update them, oftentimes on a weekly or monthly basis as things change. And so we hear from businesses, certainly a lot of gratitude, but it's just the ability to help them navigate some of those frustrations, I think, that is very rewarding for us, and hopefully advocating for better policy as we go along as well.
And Stephanie, let's talk about workforce. It's a major initiative for the Chamber. Your members have identified workforce development and education as issues that are important to their success. You've already partnered with the Dayton Learn to Earn initiative, which is exciting, STEM School, and the Workforce Investment Board. What's the goal you aim to reach through these relationships?
Right. We hear time and time again that the number one issue for our businesses is workforce, finding and hiring talented, qualified people for these empty positions. It's not necessarily that there are not open jobs in our community, it's that there's a mismatch. We can't find people to fill these jobs. And so those organizations that you mentioned really speaks to that regional focus. It's a priority for us to partner with some of these groups that are on the ground. A lot of those groups really deal with the sort of supply side of workforce. And so how do we create that P16 pipeline? How do we get these kids in the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics? How do we grow that education area, and how do we grow that skill set? And then, further down the line, it's also understanding that once we have people in the workforce and who are employed, oftentimes it's a matter of perhaps retraining them midway through their career. It's helping them complete their degree after perhaps they've entered the workforce. And so there's so many pieces of workforce that impact our members on a daily basis. But for us, particularly, it's finding that entry point to engage businesses. And sometimes it's a matter of internships and helping our businesses navigate the internship process. Sometimes it's a matter of getting them into schools and doing job shadowing and mentoring for young students. Sometimes it's a matter of just helping their employees with soft skills and understanding that some of the very basic things that we take for granted when you're looking to hire an employee, businesses need help finding people who can meet those needs. And so we play a lot of different roles when it comes to workforce, but Learn to Earn is a major strategic regional initiative. Can't say enough good things about the work that we're doing with them. And I think it's going to continue to be a huge priority for us throughout the next couple years.
Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, I mean, Stephanie's exactly right. I mean, workforce is a top priority, and we got to do everything we can to ensure that we have the right talent here to meet the business needs of our members. But as Stephanie mentioned, it starts, you know, at the K through 12 education level, and actually some advocates are even saying the P through 12 education level, and you know, I think they have a good case to be made there. But something that was a focus of ours in 2014, and I'm sure will probably be a focus in 2015, is maintaining the current K through 12 education standards. So these are the new education standards that were put in place back in 2010, but took effect in 2014. They're more commonly known as Common Core. We have been strong supporters of the Common Core education standards because they raise the bar for everybody across the country. Prior to Common Core being implemented, there were different standards for students that were graduating from high schools throughout the country. If you had a student graduating from high school in Nashville, Tennessee, and you had a student graduating from high school in Dayton, Ohio, they could have different educational attainment levels. Well, that was confusing for the business community. The business community didn't necessarily know what skill set or what talent level individuals were coming out of high school. It was confusing for the higher education institutions. You know, you might be accepted to one institution but not to another because they have different standards. So the Common Core education standards made everybody on an even playing field, providing consistency to the business community and allowing them to have some more confidence in the folks that are coming out of our public education system. At the same time, it increased that rigor. It increased the rigor and that real-world work experience that folks really need to have in the education system. And you know, it's important to note the Common Core education standards in Ohio are really just the minimum standards that are being asked of some of our school districts. Schools can still, and we would encourage the schools, to have even more rigorous standards so that we're producing some of the best and most talented employees anywhere else in the country. Local school boards still have the decisions on how they want to implement this, still have decisions on the curriculum and the textbooks. None of that's being taken away. That's still in place. We just wanted to make sure that the minimum standards had been raised, and that's what happened with Common Core. If there's any efforts in 2015 that are looking to change that, I'm sure our voice is going to be there to make sure that they stay in place.
Absolutely.
All right. Chris Kershner, Stephanie Precht from the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you, Cathy.
And if you'd like to take a look at the 2015-2016 legislative and regulatory agenda, go to DaytonChamber.org. There is a link on the homepage. And don't forget to like the Chamber on Facebook and follow the Chamber on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I'm Cathy Petersen. Thanks so much for joining us.
One of the most important aspects of any Chamber of Commerce is its role as an advocate for the business community. We are dedicated to the spirit of private free enterprise. In recent years, we've seen improvements in the public sector's attitude toward the private sector, as it recognizes that the community, region, or state, even nation, will not be successful if there are not a strong private sector creating economic growth and jobs. The free enterprise system that we have in America has helped to make this such a great nation. But even with a better culture, the communication many times breaks down as to the needs of businesses, the speed at which businesses need support or responses from their public officials, or just the misalignment of goals that could be shared, but at times aren't. Our chamber has played a role in that arena now for 108 years. Our newest legislative agenda focuses on the continuation of a business-friendly environment, tax reform, infrastructure needs, workforce challenges, and ethical and efficient government. Our newest agenda, of which we share with our elected and appointed officials, was conceived and written by our private sector leadership. It gives us specific points as to where we place our energies and resources on behalf of area employers. Today's program gives us a high-level overview of some of our objectives, but rest assured, every day our members and professional staff are hard at work in the arena, continuing to make Ohio and our region the most successful and competitively advantaged state and community in the Midwest.